The Mystery of Apartment 3B. Emily was excited to start fresh. After getting a new job in a new city, she found a cozy apartment in an older building. The rent was cheap, the neighborhood was quiet, and the landlord, Mrs. Turner, seemed nice enough. Her new home was Apartment 3B, and although it felt a little old, it was just what she needed. The first week went smoothly. Emily unpacked her boxes, decorated her space, and started to settle in. But soon, strange things started happening. One morning, she noticed her coffee mug had moved from the kitchen counter to the living room table. She hadn't touched it. Another day, she came home to find her closet door wide open, even though she always kept it shut. At first, Emily thought she might just be forgetful, but then came the whispers. At night, when everything was quiet, Emily could hear faint whispers, like someone mumbling just out of earshot. It made her skin crawl. She tried turning up the TV to drown out the noise, but the whispers seemed to grow louder whenever she tried to ignore them. Curious and a little scared, Emily decided to ask her neighbors about the apartment. She knocked on the door of Mrs. Jensen, the elderly woman who lived across the hall. "Hi, I just moved into 3B, Emily said with a nervous smile. "Have you noticed anything strange about it?" Mrs. Jensen's face darkened. "You're brave to live there, dear," she said in a low voice. "The girl who lived there before you, she disappeared. No one knows what happened to her." "Disappeared?" Emily's stomach tightened. Mrs. Jensen nodded. "Her name was Rachel. Sweet girl. One day, she just vanished. The cops came, asked questions, but they never found her. Some people say the apartment is haunted." Emily tried to laugh it off as she returned to her apartment, but now she felt uneasy. Haunted? That seemed ridiculous. She didn't believe in ghosts. Still, the whispers and the moving items didn't have any logical explanation. That night, Emily decided to investigate. Armed with a flashlight and her phone, she searched every corner of her apartment, looking for anything out of the ordinary. When she got to the closet, she noticed a faint draft coming from the back wall. She pushed aside her clothes and ran her hand along the wooden panels. One panel felt loose. She pried it open and gasped. Behind the wall was a small hidden space, like a secret compartment. Inside, she found a notebook, some photos, and a few personal items that must have belonged to Rachel. Emily opened the notebook and started reading. It was Rachel's journal. The last few entries sent chills down her spine. "Someone is watching me," Rachel had written. "I hear whispers at night. I think someone's been in my apartment when I'm not home. I'm scared." Emily's heart raced. Rachel had felt the same things she was experiencing now. But what happened to her? As Emily flipped through the journal, she found one entry that mentioned a maintenance worker named Gary. Rachel had written that Gary gave her a creepy feeling and would often show up unannounced, claiming he needed to check something in her apartment. Determined to find the truth, Emily took the journal to the police the next morning. She told them about the hidden space and the entries about Gary. The detective she spoke to, Officer Reed, took her seriously and promised to look into it. A few days later, Emily got a call from Officer Reed. "Emily, you were right," he said. "We questioned Gary and he confessed. He had been stalking Rachel and broke into her apartment the night she disappeared. He panicked and, well, we found Rachel's remains buried near his home. Thanks to you, he's been arrested, and Rachel's family can finally have closure." Emily felt a mix of relief and sadness. She was glad Rachel's story was no longer a mystery, but her heart ached for the young woman who had lost her life. After everything, Emily decided to stay in apartment 3B. She no longer felt afraid, and the whispers had stopped. She redecorated the space, filling it with bright colors and plants to bring it back to life. Over time, Emily grew close to her neighbors, especially Mrs. Jensen. She even started a campaign to make the building safer, like adding better locks and security cameras. Though the memory of Rachel would always linger, Emily felt at peace, knowing she had helped bring justice to her. And as she looked out the window of her little apartment one sunny morning, she smiled, ready to embrace the bright future ahead.